Sarnai. Last time we were talking about a sutra, but I don't remember the name of the sutra. We were looking at Opanayika, so seeing by oneself, and how a person understands Dhamma according to their wisdom. So we were just talking about the balance between wisdom and blind faith, as well as having faith in what we do. So we have to have the balance of faith and wisdom to understand. And we were looking at how you can bring peace into one's life by practicing the Dhamma, and how we train our mind so that our mind becomes more peaceful. We understood that a person who has faith is someone who practices and sees the cessation of these defilements, and what we identified as defilements were things that defilements are things that you are trying to get rid of. So some suffering is one of the defilements. And we looked at how sila and virtue, so basically having morals and a discipline, can quieten the mind, because we try to maintain concentration or mindfulness. And a person who has got rid of the defilements doesn't need sila, because it automatically comes with it, and has got rid of their ego. So it's no longer necessary to have a sort of discipline. And I've written down that everyone forgets something and done something that gets rid of sorrow. So if one can see the cessation of these things, it gives everyone a second chance. Just like a dirty cloth becoming clean, you can get rid of these defilements.
Thank you, Imhansa. So the sutta that we discussed last time was Vattupam Sutta. And the sutta, like you said, has or lists a set of defilements that a person who practices mindfulness, who is practicing the spiritual life, needs to get rid of, right? And there's a minor correction that I want to make there. It's just in the way that you explained it about the sila. It's that when a person practices mindfulness and they become fully enlightened, it's not that they don't have a sila, it's that sila is already ingrained within them. Does that make sense? So, and we'll talk about that a little bit today as well when we talk about the Buddha's qualities. And so it's not that they don't have a sila, sila is already within them, right? So, and again today we have joining us with us Sunandananda Swamin Wahanse, and I think maybe Susumahita Bhante will also join later. So far, the suttas that we've discussed are suttas that are directly related to our practice, right? And these suttas were short and they were concise. So they're directly related to our practice, the way we practice it. And today I want to sort of change that perspective and look into a different type of sutta or different style of sutta, and go into the suttas in the Digha Nikaya. So if you remember how the Tipitaka is constructed, we have for the Christian people they have the Bible, right? And for the Muslim people they have the Quran. For us we have the Tipitaka, so we have the Vinaya, the Sutta, and the Abhidhamma. And then the Sutta Pitaka is what we mainly talk about, and the Sutta Pitaka is split into 5 parts: Digha Nikaya, Majjhima Nikaya, Samyutta Nikaya, Anguttara, and Kuddaka. Right? So the Digha Nikaya are the long discourses, where the long the suttas are, and then Majjhima Nikaya is the middle length discourses. Samyutta is the compact suttas, and then Anguttara is the numerical discourses, and then Kuddaka Nikaya has a set of other books, smaller books that like Dhammapada, for example, or Tera Teri Gata. And the Digha Nikaya then is split into 3 parts. Okay, we don't need to know that much, but it has 3 parts. And the sutta that we are going to be discussing today is the second sutta in the Digha Nikaya. It's called the Samannyapala Sutra. Right? So in the Digha Nikaya, there's 34 suttas. Right? And you would think that it's ordered in the length of the sutta, right? So you would think that the longest sutta is the first sutta. But in the Digha Nikaya, it's actually not like that. The first sutta in the Digha Nikaya is called the Brahmajala Sutta, and the second is the Samanyapala Sutta. the longest suttas in the Tipitaka are actually they're in the Mahavagga in the Digha Nikaya, the second part of the Digha Nikaya. So today we are looking at the one of the suttas in the first part of the sutta, first part of Digha Nikaya, right? And if you remember this, the Tipitaka, the Vinaya and the Dhamma were recited in the first council after the Buddha's passing, after about 3 months after the Buddha's passing, by 500 months. And if we think about why they, if we analyze why they would have done this, or put the suttas in this order, not have the longest sutta first. When we look at the Digha Nikaya, the first sutta, like I said, is a Brahmajala Sutta, right? And the translation for that is net of weaves. So it talks about 62 different philosophies or beliefs that people had in India back then, right? And Buddha tells us or shows how these philosophies are wrong, and then goes into explain his philosophy. And then in the second sutta, the Samannyapala Sutta, it talks about the importance of the ascetic life, the monastic life. So let's say someone picks up the Digha Nikaya and starts reading from front to back. First thing that they read is the Brahmajala Sutta, right? Which explains why some of these other philosophies that are there at the time in India, how they are wrong, right? And if that person reading the book had these beliefs or was following one of these philosophies, that attachment to that philosophy is broken, right? That philosophy is dismissed. So then this person needs a new philosophy, right? So then Buddha explains his philosophy at the end of Brahmajala Sutta. And then in the next sutta that he reads, he is then shown the importance of monk life or ascetic life. And that's a sutta that we're going to be talking about today, right? So if none of that made sense, don't worry about it. It's knowledge, right? In the spiritual life, knowledge doesn't mean anything, right? You don't need to know any of it. In spirituality, like I said, knowledge has no value, and knowledge and wisdom, they're two different things. So you need knowledge to have a nice job and to be materialistically successful, right? To have a good job, to have a reputation, etc. And then the more educated you are, the more knowledge you have, the society will give you trophies and medals and certificates and things like that, right? So what we see from that is that educated people care about how educated you are, right? Because they can use you, right? They can use you, meaning they can get you to work for them, or they can use you for their advantage, right? But enlightened people, they don't care about how educated or what job you do. They don't care about those things. So let's go to sutta. It's called the Samannyapala Sutta, like I said. And Samannyapala is actually two words combined. So you have Samanya and Pala. Pala means results, right? Results. And Samanya is this word. We classify it as what we call a taddita. Okay, taddita means a word combined with a suffix. So this suffix by itself doesn't have a meaning, but the word itself has a meaning, right? The samana is the word, and it has a meaning. It means ascetic. So to explain this a bit further, and we have this in Sinhalese too, right? So for example, let's say there's a suffix called niya, and we combine it with a word, right? So let's say karaniya, for example. Karaniya means suitable to do or should do, right? Paniya means suitable to drink or should drink. Paribhojaniya means suitable to use, right? And another example is, we talked a while ago about Sangyojaniya Dhamma, right? Sangyojana by itself has a meaning. The meaning is fetters or defilements. And Sangyojaniya, when that suffix is combined, it means prone to being a fetter, prone to being a defilement, right? So what a taddita means is, you have the word and you have the suffix, right? So you have the word, you have the suffix. When you combine these two, that word gets a new meaning. That's why we call it taddita, right? Another example is manomaya. So mana is a word for the mind, and when you combine it with the suffix maya, it means it's created by the mind. Ayomaya is created by metal, right, etc. And so in this case, in our case, samana plus the suffix nya combined. So samana plus nya means samanya. That's how you get that word. Samanya becomes. That's how it comes. And so the word itself, samana means ascetic, and when you samanya means in the ascetic life, within the ascetic life, right? So the name of the sutta, if you translate it, it actually means the results of an ascetic life or a monastic life, right? So this is a long sutta, like I said, it's in the Digha Nikaya, so we won't be able to finish it today, and we'll see how far we can go, right? And it's I really like this sutta because it has a very nice flow to it, and it's in chronological order, easy to understand, easy to follow, and it tells a lot about the ascetic life as well. So for someone who is new to Buddhism or someone who is interested in learning about Buddhism, this is a very nice sutta because it talks about the ascetic life and the results of the ascetic life. And in this sutta, there's three main characters. There's the Buddha, there's a king named Ajasatta, and then there's also a doctor, Jivaka, and he's the doctor of the king. And the sutta takes place at night time on a full moon day. Right? So Buddha at the time was living in a park owned by the doctor Jivaka. It's a mango park, and the Buddha was with, the sutta says, 1,250 monks. And at the time, the king's castle is also nearby, and the king says, because it's like I said, it's a full moon day, night time, Ramaniya Vatabo Desina Ratti, which means it's a beautiful night. And he keeps complimenting this night, right? It's a full moon day. The moon is shining bright. The stars are visible. It's a quiet night. And he keeps complimenting the night. So then he says, if we are able to, or if we were to go and talk to a person, a philosopher, the king asks his ministers, who should we go and talk to? Right? So, and there's something about these clear nights, right? Not today, but maybe like yesterday night. Yesterday was actually full moon's day. So if you go to the outback and you look at the sky at night time, you can see the Milky Way. It's very beautiful, right? And you can see a lot of stars, and because there's no light pollution there. And you can actually see the Milky Way from our monastery as well, but there's a lot of clouds most of the time. So what I wanted to bring up was, when you go outside and you're looking at the stars, and you have to let your eyes get adjusted, right, to the darkness, you begin to see the faintest stars in the sky when you're looking. And if you're not talking to anyone, if you don't have any stress in your mind automatically begins to bring up these deeper questions that you have about life. It's something that happens. Okay, and not a lot, but there are suttas, not just this one, other suttas as well, where Buddha's having a discussion late at night. So for example, the very first sutta that Buddha, or teaching that Buddha gives, the Dhammsakpawatthana Sutta, the teaching about the two extremes, that's a discussion that happened overnight as well. Right, so in this case as well, it happens overnight, right? And like I said, when your mind is quiet, when your mind's in an environment that is quiet, it naturally brings up these deeper questions that we have, right? But what we do is we sort of fill it up with these other random thoughts and gossip, and then waste that opportunity away, right? So it's an opportunity to think deeply about life, right? What I mean by that is, this ability to think deeply about life is a gift that humans have, right? So rather than chasing external things and going after these external materialistic things, we begin to think about why we are born as humans, or is there something beyond these external things, materialistic gains in life, something that wasn't taught to us in high school, right? And is there a solution to growing old, or is there a solution to death, right? Or why do we become sad when we fail, and why do we become happy when we win or when we pass? We begin to think about these things, and these are the deep questions that we have within us, and yet we don't like to think about them, right? So whenever our mind brings it up, we shut it down, or we cover it up with something. So in this sutta, the king Ajasatta, he feels like a night to discuss philosophy, talk to a philosopher, and he asks his ministers who they should go to talk to. And the first minister says he should go to this philosopher named Purana Kassapa, and tells why he should go to see Purana Kassapa. He says that he's a famous person, and he has a lot of followers. He's a well-known person and well-respected person in the community, and he's an elderly person, meaning that he has a lot of experience in life. And but the king wasn't happy. He kept quiet, right? And then the next minister, he recommends a philosopher named Makkali Gosala, and again he lists the same qualities about this philosopher, and again the king kept quiet. And you'll see why he keeps quiet later when he meets the Buddha, right? So then the third one is Ajita Kesarambala, and again the Buddha was quiet. The king was quiet. And these philosophers, they all lived at the same time that Buddha lived in India, right? Around 2,600 years ago. And each of them had their own philosophy and a lot of followers. And there's three more: Pakuda Kachayana, Sanjay Bellattaputta, and Nigantanataputta. So these are the 6 philosophers. We call them Shatshastruvaru. 6 philosophers that lived in addition to the Buddha at the same time. And you'll notice that when we're going to talk about what their philosophers are, they're not just philosophies that were there 2,600 years ago in India, right? They still have followers to this day. And not just in India, but also in Australia, right? So a lot of the people who call themselves Buddhists, you'll see when we talk about the philosophies, they're actually followers of these people, right? Because they have very fine philosophies, and sometimes they misinterpret the Buddha's teachings and then fall into the trap of being one of their followers. You'll see what I mean later, right? So after these 6 ministers recommends these 6 philosophers, then the doctor, who was also there, he was quiet, and the king notices the quietness of the doctor and asks the doctor, Jivaka, who was quiet, and asks him if he has any recommendations. And the doctor he has actually met Buddha before, and he has listened to the Dhamma, he had practiced the Dhamma before. So notice that the previous cases, the previous ministers were very eager to recommend the king to their teachers, right? However, the doctor who practices the Dhamma, he's not trying to force that king to come to the Buddha. So in other words, the Buddha's teachings, it's not something that you can force onto someone else. It's something that they had to realize that when they think about life deeply, and they start searching for something. And that's when they sort of come across the Buddha's teachings, right? So it's not something that you can force onto someone's life. It's something that they had to look for and find out. So the doctor who doesn't jump in, but when the king asks, he recommends the Buddha is living by with a lot of monks in the mango park, and you should go and see the Buddha. And the Buddha the doctor then talks about the qualities of the Buddha. So if you remember the previous philosophers, they had qualities such as being famous, having a lot of followers, being elderly, those sort of things, right? But the qualities of the Buddha that Jivaka explains here are very, very different, right? So the qualities of the Buddha, he says, Arahan, Samma Sambuddha, Vijjacharan Sampanna, Sugata, Lokavidu, Anuttara Purisa Dhammasarati, Satta Deva Manusana, Buddha Bhagava. right? So there's 9 qualities of the Buddha. If you remember, we talked about the qualities of the Dhamma, right? There's 6 qualities of the Dhamma, and now 9 qualities of the Buddha. Do you guys know the qualities of the Buddha, what they mean? Sort of? No? Maybe a couple. Right? So Arahant means that the Buddha was free from defilements, right? So for a person like a Buddha who is free from defilements, free from attachments, there's no such thing as doing bad for an enlightened person. That's what Arahant means. Samma Sambuddha means he was enlightened without a teacher. He didn't have a guidance. Vijjacharana Sampanna means he had special jnana, right? Jnana means that he mastered, and those are wisdom that only a Buddha can have. And he, in other words, means accomplished in knowledge and conduct, right? And then Sugata means full of perfected qualities, right? And these qualities, they don't harm anyone. Lokavidu means he has realized the true nature of everything, the mind and the body, to be more specific. Anuttaro Purisa Dhammasarathi means he had various people who come to him, right? Some were nice, some were not nice. Some wanted to argue, some didn't, right? Some wanted to kill him. But any of these people who came, Buddha ended up becoming a follower of Buddha or practicing the Dhamma. Right, so he was able to, and this sutta as well is an example of this quality. This king, you'll see, he doesn't have any respect for the Buddha initially. So it means different people come with different ideas in their heads, and they end up being a follower of the Buddha, right? And then we have Satta Deva Manusana. Satta means teacher. Deva Manusana, teacher for gods and humans, right? So the Buddha himself, he wasn't a god, he wasn't a follower of God, and he's not a messenger of a god, right? He taught others what he himself realized, right? So this teaching was realized by a human being and was taught to human beings. And Buddha is the next one. I'll come back to that after. So Bhagava means worthy of paying respect and blessed, right? So then the one I skipped was Buddha. So initially the second one was Samma Sambuddha, and now we have Buddha again. Do you know why? So the second one was Samma Sambuddha, right? Which means he was enlightened by himself without a teacher. So why do we have Buddha again? What does this one mean? Any guesses? Okay. Yeah? Okay, so Samma Sambuddha means enlightened by himself. The Buddha means he was able to teach the Dhamma or preach the Dhamma to others, right? Or in other words, he was able to transmit the Dhamma to others. The reason that this is a quality or is mentioned as a quality is because we have, let's say, Samma Sambuddha. There's 3 types of enlightenment: Samma Sambuddha, Pacceka Buddha, and Arahants, right? Samma Sambuddha is able to teach it to others or transmit the Dhamma to others. Pacceka Buddha, they are also, we call them Samma Sambuddha because Pacceka Buddha, because they don't have a teacher as well. They are enlightened by themselves, but they are not able to transmit the Dhamma to others, right? So a Pacceka Buddha doesn't have that quality. They're not able to transmit the Dhamma to others. The Arahants are people who listen from someone else and then they become enlightened. Right? We call this Paragosa Pratya or Shrutame Jnana. They need to listen to the philosophy from someone else and then they become enlightened. Those are Arahants. Right? So Samma Sambuddha, they are enlightened by themselves and then they are able to teach it to others. Pacceka Buddha, they are enlightened by themselves but they can't teach it to someone else. Arahants, they listen to someone, listen to the philosophy from someone and then they become enlightened. Those are the 3 types of enlightenments, right? And three types of enlightenment, but their realization, you have to understand, is the same, right? The realization is the same regardless of who becomes enlightened. It's just a matter of how they do it that differentiates them, right? Because let's say if the Buddha becomes enlightened and he has a different realization to someone else, then that realization is relative, right? So if the realization is relative, then that realization is not true, right? So the realization has to be the same regardless of who becomes enlightened. So let me ask you a question. Let's say someone listens to a Dhamma talk by a Pacceka Buddha and they become enlightened. Who do they become? What type of enlightenment do they have?
But Pacceka Buddhas can't teach it to someone else.
But they can still talk, right? They can still have a conversation. They just can't teach the Dhamma. So let's say someone was listening to him talking, and then they become enlightened. They become an Arahant. Okay, that's one for Arahants.
Samma Sambuddha?
Samma Sambuddha, okay. So one for Samma Sambuddha. Any other guesses? Any guesses for Pacceka Buddha?
Well, we don't have enough information to know if it could be a Pacceka Buddha. It would have to be the first or the third. Yeah? I don't know.
So let's say if someone like Pacceka Buddha, they can't teach the Dhamma, right? But they can still have a conversation like, how are you, or what are you doing these days? They can have these sort of conversations. And if someone listens to a talk by a Pacceka Buddha and they become enlightened, they haven't yet listened to the Dhamma. They haven't heard the Dhamma, right? So they can't be an Arahant. And they can't also be a Samma Sambuddha, because at the time you can't if there's a Samma Sambuddha there's no Pacceka Buddhas. So he also becomes a Pacceka Buddha. Does that make sense? Because he hasn't listened to the Dhamma, but he became enlightened.
So is it what defines like they can't teach it to someone else? Is it because they don't know the Dhamma?
No.
Or they just lack the skill?
They lack the skill, yeah, that's a better way, yeah. So the Buddhists, to teach something or to bring to words something that we cannot explain through words is a skill. Right.
What defines that a Pacceka Buddha and a Samma Sambuddha can't be living in coexistence? Sorry, like it's in the same existence.
At the same time, it's in the theory. So it says when there's a Samma Sambuddha, there's no person who can be matched to a Buddha. So yeah, but yeah, that's what in the suttas. There's a special.
Mentioned that in one of the sutta.
Yeah, I think Isigili Sutta and Khaggavisana Sutta are two suttas that talk about Pacceka Buddhas. So anyway, what was I going to say? So yeah, so even Arahants, not all Arahants can transmit the Dhamma or explain the Dhamma to others. Right? It's a skill that comes. So that's why we have this quality Buddha as one of the qualities for Samma Sambuddha. Right? They're able to transmit the Dhamma, give the Dhamma to someone else. And so these 9 qualities of the Buddha, it's actually also a meditation technique, right? It's a very powerful technique as well. So one of the ways that you can do is repeat these in your head. So Arahant, close your eyes, and Arahant Samma Sambuddha Vijjācana Sampanna Sugata Lokavidu Anuttaro Purisa Dhammasarthi Satta Devamanusanam Buddho Bhagava. And you go in cycles. Another way to do it is pick one and repeat that in your mind. Right? So maybe if you're doing a walking meditation or you're walking, going for a walk or something, rather than listening to music or something, you can have that repeat in your head. So maybe like Buddho, 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 Buddho. Right? And this is a very powerful technique. There's a book called Silmata Kaiv. It's a Thai book. It's a biography of this person named Kaiv. and she does this meditation. That's the only meditation that she does. She does walking meditation, and she repeats the word Buddha, Buddha, Buddha in her mind as she's stepping. And so it explains. She says she wakes up very early in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, and till 6 o'clock for 3 hours straight she would do this meditation, right? And when you read her biography, she goes through a lot of tough times, and she also has a lot of willpower, right? And so one day she does the same meditation, wakes up 3 o'clock, does the walking meditation, and at 6 o'clock she stops, and then at 6:30 is when she has breakfast. So she has this half an hour break or gap in between the two, and she was sitting down, and she becomes enlightened at that moment, right? So these techniques, these meditations are very powerful techniques. And also notice, interestingly, she doesn't actually become enlightened when she was meditating. She was enlightened when she was sitting down, not thinking about anything, right? When her mind is free, right? This is something that we see quite a lot. People actually, like even Ananda Thero, like they become enlightened not when they're meditating. So anyway, going back to the sutta, so Jivaka then tells the king that he should go see the Buddha, right? And then the king tells him to prepare the vehicles, which were the elephants and the horses and stuff, and they get ready and they leave. So when they get to the mango park, they go as far as they can go in these on top of these animals. They get down and they start walking, and the king gets scared now, right? Because it's dark and it's very quiet there. So Jivaka told him that there's 1,250 monks living with the Buddha at this time, but there's no noises, there's no sounds, there's no voices there. So the king gets a bit worried and asks Jivaka, who is actually a friend of the Buddha, right? They're very close, and he asks, "Are you trying to kill me, or are you trying to kidnap me and hand me over to the enemies?" Right? And this is a consequence of having too much power and being attached to that power, right? We have a lot of fears. So the doctor tells him to don't worry and just keep going. And when they get to the area where the monks are living, the king asks the doctor where the Buddha is, right? So this gives us two pieces of information. The first is that this is the first time the king is going to meet the Buddha, right? Because he hasn't met him before, he hasn't seen him before, he doesn't know what he looks like. And the second is how a Buddha cannot be distinguished from other people, right? So Buddha was a normal human being. The only difference is that he's enlightened, and that enlightenment is spiritual and not seen physically, right? Because if it was seen physically, then the king should have been able to see that or identify that's Buddha, right? But he wasn't able to do that. So then the Jivaka, the doctor, tells the king, when he asks where the Buddha is, the doctor says Buddha is sitting down with the back against the pole. That's Buddha. And this also shows how down to earth the Buddha was, right? He's with other monks, he's sitting down on the ground, leaning against a pole, right? And the king then goes there and meets the Buddha, and he stays standing, right? Normally in the suttas, it says Tenupasankami upasankamita bhagavantang abhivadetva ekamantan nisidi. It means met the Buddha, paid respect to the Buddha, and then they sat down on the side. But here in this sutta it says Tenupasankami upasankamitva ekamantang attasi. It doesn't even say he paid respect to the Buddha, right? So he met the Buddha and he just stood to the side, right? Because he's a king, right? He has a big ego, and also shows that he doesn't have that much respect to the Buddha just yet, right? So this is also another thing about the Dhamma, right? It's not something you blindly follow. The faith is not blindly developed, right? Something you listen to the teaching, you practice the teaching, then you develop faith. This is an example of that, right? So standing on the side, he looks around and sees the monks. The king sees the monks and notices how peaceful and quiet it is there. And so he says it's like a still lake. The water is still and it's very peaceful. And then the king says to the Buddha that he wants his son to be as peaceful as this. Right? And then the Buddha says, did your mind go to the person that you love? Or in other words, did you get carried away by your love? Right? The Buddha asks that, and I use the term being a slave to the mind quite a lot, right? And this is what I mean by that. So when an emotion is generated within us, or a thought comes to our mind, we get carried away by that thought, right? And all of a sudden that thought or that emotion is now controlling us. Right? Maybe we are crying, maybe we are happy, we are excited, or maybe we are scared, right? All these emotions begin to control us because we are a slave to our mind. And that happens because of these attachments that we have, right? And what I mean by that is we have these attachments, like I keep saying, it's not to these external things, but to these concepts that we have within our mind. Right? It's something that you really have to understand, because in this spiritual life, this is the beginning. Understanding that it's not the external world that is bothering us, that we are attached to. It's our own concepts that we have developed throughout our life. Right? So a newborn child, let's say you bring them to the temple or something. They still cry, they still pee, they still poo. They don't care, right? They run around, they scream. They don't care that there's a monk there giving a Dhamma talk, right? If they're hungry, they cry. But then as we develop, our parents teach us, okay, you should be quiet, you're at the temple, you should behave this way. Or when you're at your friends, you should be this way. You're at home, you can be free. When you're at work, you have to behave this way. And we begin to believe that, okay, this is how I should be. And then we maintain these characters in these places, right? One person at work, one person at the temple, one person at home. When we practice mindfulness, when you slowly progress as you practice mindfulness, this ability to maintain different characters go away. Right? So you're the same everywhere. Right? Or in other words, think about this, right? So if you're maintaining different characters, it's a burden to the mind. Right? Because you're here one person, you're at work a different person. When you're with people you don't know, you're a different person. You're maintaining different identities. Whereas if you have no attachment to that, you can be free, right? You can just be yourself, right? And we have this saying, "Anyo me akappo karaniyoti," means our mindset has to change as we practice mindfulness. Right, it's in the Dhamma Sutra. What that means is we want to develop or maintain this reputation that we have, right, in society, that dignity that we have developed. What if we throw it in the bin and we still act accordingly, right? But without that attachment to these identities or these characters that we've built, without trying to maintain that reputation that we've built. Would we be more free, or is it going to be another burden? What do you think?
More free?
You would be, right? And it's something that you can practice. You can see for yourself. If you're trying to maintain something all the time, you don't notice it because you're doing it all the time. But if you just for even just a second, just get rid of it and be yourself, you'll notice how free that is. And that doesn't mean we don't respect the culture and the things or the environment that we are in, right? We still respect that, but we're just not trying to maintain anything about ourselves, right? And Buddha uses this word, tanha daso. It means people are a slave to their desires, right? Tanha daso, people are slave to their desires. And that's what I mean. Like our mind gives us these points to or attachments or desires, and then we go around chasing and looking for these desires or trying to fulfill these desires. And that is why we have these spiritual lives, right? Why there is spirituality in this world, to find meaning in life, or to liberate ourselves from being a slave to these desires, right? And so then like the Buddha says here to the king, did your mind get carried away by the people you love? And the king says, I love my son, and I want him to be as peaceful as these monks. And after saying this, so this was sort of like the icebreaker, and after this, the king then pays respect to the monks and the Buddha, and then sits on the side, right? And if we go further from here, I'm gonna have to leave you hanging off a cliff, right? So if you stop here, it's still hanging. I'm gonna have to leave you hanging off a cliff, bruh. But if you go further, you'll be hanging off one-handed, right? So what do you want me to do? Do you want me to keep going for a bit more, or should I stop here and we can discuss about something else? Maybe a question that you have about the things that we talked so far, or
if we kept going, are we stopping in like the middle of a teaching kind of thing?
Sort of.
Yes.
Well, if you have a question, we can continue with that, or I can go a little bit further. Well, yeah, it's the next bit. It makes sense to talk with the rest of it.
Okay, then we can do questions. Dilitha had a question, which I didn't want to answer, but he asked, what does enlighten mean? Because I know we were referencing it a bit.
Okay. So, Nas, do you want to explain that? Enlightenment is understanding your mind fully, in simply put. There's different ways, right? Getting rid of your defilements, getting rid of your desires, getting rid of your ego.
I guess like the question came up because like I can't remember who it was, but saying the Itipiso Gatha became enlightened. It's like, how does saying that Gatha make... Yeah.
How did she realize she became enlightened in that time?
How did she realize that she was enlightened?
Yeah. Like, did she realize, or...
Do you know if you're enlightened?
Do you know if you...
Oh, that's it. So after you're enlightened, do you know if you're enlightened or not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you know?
How do you know it? You know it because you're liberated, right? So there's an
the person he can know by he can understand how suffering arises, and he knows how to get rid of suffering. So that is the main point, I think. All this suffering, how it arises and how it is passed away. So I think that is the main point, yeah. Like samsaric cycle and the whole thing, how it arises, myself and the world, and how it ceases. So these two things is very important, I think.
And I'm assuming understanding as in like practically?
Yeah, realizing. So it's not knowledge, right?
Yeah.
It's they've realized it. Yeah, so the realization happens not with knowledge, right? Yeah, so it's a matter of practicing mindfulness, right? So that's the only way to being enlightened, practice mindfulness. And when you practice mindfulness, what happens is slowly I'll explain in our program, there's different sangyojana or defilements that Buddha has explained, and Buddha explains this part, separates it into 4 parts, and in each stage you lose a certain set of sanyojana or defilements. And so in the first stage you get rid of 3, and then second stage you get rid of a bit of next 2, third stage you get rid of the next those 2 completely, and then last stage you get rid of the last 5. So up until the third stage you have some sort of an attachment to these senses, right? So we call that person a non-returner. Means they don't come back to a calmer world, a world of humans and gods, because they have no attachment to these senses anymore, right? So someone who has practiced mindfulness up until that stage, they don't have any attachment to the body anymore, right? For that person, they can't actually practice mindfulness on the body anymore because they have no attachment to it anymore. But yeah.
So where do they go then? If like you
So it's called Suddhavasa Brahmaloka, like Brahma worlds. It says so. What happens is the first stage is called the stream enterer. So when someone enters a stream, they end up in the ocean, right? Whatever goes into the stream ends up in the ocean at some point. So a person who practices mindfulness and realizes the Dhamma, the initial stage is the stream enterer. The reason we call it a stream enterer or sotapanna is because a person who achieves this stage, whether they like it or not, sooner or later they become an arahant. Okay, that's why we call it sotapanna or stream enterer.
So everyone that starts practicing mindfulness at some point will become arahant.
Anyone who becomes a stream enterer will become an arahant.
We aren't stream enterers. That's what I thought. I think stream entry is the point.
Stream entry is a progression. It's actually the start of the practice, right? It's actually the start of the practice. Believe it or not.
So we're all stream enterers.
No, you haven't been there. You're not there yet.
Okay.
Okay.
There are 2 things for stream enterer. One is in the path, one is attained.
Attained,
like Magga and Phala.
Mm.
So someone who is still in the path, he has not attained the fruition. Fruition, no?
Yeah, they have the result basically.
Result, yeah. So for stream enterer level, once you reach that level, then you know that because you do not have any doubt. That is the main quality. You get rid of all the doubt about everything. Everything means
Nibbana,
not
yeah.
like how
About
to
your practice.
make a car or how this, these are the worldly doubts. No, but doubts related to suffering and cessation of suffering or existence, your existence. So these basic doubts all gone. That is the main quality. But before that, you might have doubts. You're still on the path. So that is the difference.
So that's the first stage. And then second is what we call once returner. So if a person who achieves once returner dies, they will come back into this world once and they'll be enlightened in that life. A person, they can still progress, right? So if they don't die, let's say they progress further, they become a non-returner. And if they progress further, they become fully enlightened, become an arahant. Right? That's what happens. And the middle 2 stages are you get rid of what we call kamaraga padika. So how your mind is sometimes getting attached or accepting things and rejecting things. That nature sort of goes away. And or simply put, you lose your attachment to your body. Right?
So what's the difference between a non-returner and a fully enlightened in terms of like final outcome?
A non-returner still has minor, very fine defilements. A fully enlightened person doesn't have any defilements.
But then in terms of, I guess, guess when they pass away, a non-returner isn't reborn again.
No, non-returner is born again in the Brahma worlds.
Ah.
Which means you can get
What's a Brahma?
So it's something that you can achieve by meditating.
Okay.
So it's actually in this sutta. As we go further, I'll explain when we get to that part. It's towards the end actually. It's some
Brahma world,
yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Oh, okay. The Brahma world is something you can experience in this very life. If you go into that
Meditative states.
consciousness level, yeah, you can experience that. So once you skillful in maintaining that level of consciousness, you born in that level. So what we practice here, that is where we get reborn. Means because we practice or we maintain that level of consciousness until to the end of this life, then that is where we get reborn. Like you always get angry. You know, anger means something like burning sensation, right, within. So that is why it's called we born in hell or somewhere that we can experience the fire, kind of fire, or burning sensation. So because we practice that level of consciousness in this life, so that is what it's been explained. Yeah, that's how.
Okay.
It's not like dogma. It's not like just belief. You can really experience.
You can
it.
experience,
It's very
yeah,
life.
yeah.
I thought Brahma was like a state of consciousness where your mind and body are like two different. So if you're born in a Brahma world, how do you come back? Like, because Swami suggested that you can be in this world and be reborn in a Brahma world. So do you come back or do you?
It's same like how you come back from meditation. That level from to you come in meditation. You go to a session level where you don't feel your body, you don't feel your thoughts, thinking patterns. You completely in peace, and then you come back to this sensual world. You can see things, you can hear things. So that is how exactly it happens when he get reborn in this human realm after born in Brahma realm. These things we can really experience in this life. It's the bigger picture of this.
I don't know if I'm getting confused, but like when I was younger, I don't know if I'm getting the words confused, but I learned of Brahmas as like this is my visualization, but these people that were like floating above, and it was kind of, we learned it as it was a bad thing because those people can't come back down, and then it's like a bad karma type of thing, like they're stuck in this world and they're stuck there for years and years. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. No one knows what I'm talking about.
No, I was waiting for Bhante to reply.
Do you know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
no, I do. It's okay, don't worry about it, right? In this practice,
That is because if someone go and stay there for many years, because the the lifetime of that brain is very long. So if you were born in that level, you might miss the opportunity to hear Dhamma. That is what they explain. Like you enjoy there, you have so much pleasure. Like in the meditation experience, you have blissful experiences. So you're going to have this bliss for long time, eons. So that is why some people they say like this is risky because you're stuck in samsara, this rebirth cycle. You miss out many opportunities to listen Dhamma, something like that. Yeah.
Right. And also just to add to that, the normal traditional way that Buddha teaches this path is he explains the sila and then samadhi, so right, tranquility, right? And he's talking about these mental states that we were just talking about. And when a person achieves that, what it does is, this mind which is going after these senses, trying to please these senses, it now has something else to hold on to rather than going after these senses, right? So the mind, the way that it works is, it's not going to give up what it's already attached to until it has something else to get attached to. So Buddha replaces that going after these senses by that state of mind or concentration. And then he doesn't tell us to get attached and practice that further. He tells us to observe the nature of that, and from that you're able to liberate, right? And that's why we talk about this quite a lot, but it's not a must, right? It's not a must. There's other ways. That's what you have to understand, right? So let's say you don't have any concentration or any tranquility, don't worry. If you can be mindful for just 1 second, just observe how one thought arises and goes away, you're able to be enlightened. Yeah.
I have 2 more questions. Do we have time?
Yeah.
The first one's not super related to this, but kind of related. Like, when we listen to these teachings, kind of about questioning or contemplation of I feel like my mind, because we talk about these things in your mind and bigger philosophical things. I feel like when I hear some of these things, it just relates to something that I'm doing in day to day, I'm attaching to this, or on a day-to-day thing, and I question that. Is that what do we do with what we're hearing when we do the sutta discussions, or even in our youth group? I don't know if my question makes sense.
Can you give an example or something?
Are these teachings practical for everyday stuff, or is my mind just being silly and trying to match it to something? For example, and I have it all the time with a lot of things that we talk about or say. One thing that came to me today was about you're maintaining different identity in different situations.
Is she breaking up, or is it my Wi-Fi? Can you explain the last bit again?
What did you hear?
So maintaining the identities, yeah, and then?
Do I just listen to that philosophically, or when I hear that, I think about how I am this year with work,
yeah,
my identities versus how I was last year, and in my head I do a lot of rabbit hole reflection of stuff. Obviously, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
No, so the reason that I explained that is to understand that we have these identities and to let them go. Right? Not to keep thinking, okay, I was this here, I was like this here. No, just you have your true self and just apply that everywhere.
Yeah,
right? And that means, respecting where you are, right? You're not just, yeah.
No, I mean more bigger picture, don't worry, I don't know how to say it.
Basically, you are asking how to use this knowledge in practice, right?
Are we meant to, or just keep it separate?
No.
You know what I don't know.
Just use whatever possible. Leave others behind. That's fine.
Okay.
You just hear something, we no need to use it.
Yeah.
Perfectly, or always we no need to use it, right?
Yeah.
We just hear so many things, but just use whatever it is possible to use. Yeah, leave the other behind. Yeah.
What is applicable to you, right? So let's say if I talk about the negatives of being angry, and then there's a person who doesn't get angry, there's no point in that person now starting to get angry just so he can apply this teaching, right?
Yeah.
So you have to, the things that we talk quite a lot about the mind, right? And just see what is applicable to you and then apply that to your life. And see if it makes a difference, right? Buddha says when you practice your mind, you should feel the change that is happening. You should feel more lighter and feel more relaxed, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I think, for example, when I listen to the Dhamma talk of, let's say, any teacher like Bhante Dhammajiva, so I can pick maybe 2-3 points in one whole Dhamma talk, like 1 hour duration. So the rest is either I cannot use, or either it just, for me, it's maybe like cannot use or cannot apply. So that is fine. That 1 or 2 points is enough. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And then my second question is, you said that like Itipiso is like the qualities of the
Buddha, yeah.
a powerful form of meditation, or like very powerful.
Yeah.
Can you like expand or explain what you mean by like powerful?
It's something that can really bring results, meaning, let's say, for example, someone who has ADHD, right? Someone's mind, whose mind is always going, like, shoots thoughts one after the other. For such a person, if he practices this, he'll be able to sort of bring his mind to a calmer state, right? And also these meditations, the Buddha says, if someone masters them, they, even at the moment of death, they don't go crazy. They're able to understand what is happening around them even at the moment of death. Their body might be deteriorated, right? They might have broken bones and everything, but their mind is very strong. Yeah. And also I use that example of Silmata Kai, who was enlightened using that. So it's interesting because this meditation technique, it's actually a samatha, but for her somehow it worked as a vipassana as well. Yeah.
I think the reason I asked that is because, like, for me, the Itipiso, like the qualities of the Buddha, I've like always used, and I find that like if I have a nightmare and I like keep going to sleep and I have the same nightmare, I don't know, maybe something that my mum like taught me when I was little, I like use it so much. But I think in the last few years I've started to realize every time I say like the Gatha, like nothing bad ever happens, or if I'm really worried it helps. But then I've gotten to a point where it's like I'm scared to abuse it or overuse it. So if that makes sense, like as in now I get to the point where like
There's
like,
no, I know what you mean.
I don't want to stop that. Like, you know, if something bad is like, you know, I like really try to think like, is this something I want before I like. That's why I was asking, because you said it's powerful. Like, I don't want.
No, it's so there's a saying by Buddha, Dhammosa the Samannati etam pibada bhikkhavo. What that means is there's no medicine that is comparable to the Dhamma, right? One of the ways is that you can understand is by just what you said. Every medicine that we take, there's a side effect. So if you abuse it, there's harmful effects, right? In this, you can use it all you want. Then nothing's going to happen, right? There's no such thing as abuse. Right? It works for your benefit. You actually have to use it. Right? Buddha says, Bhavita Bahuli Kata. What that means is use it again and again and again. Master it. Right? Because otherwise, if you don't use it, like you use it for a bit and then you stop, your mind goes into that old track again. Right? The same way you started, you come back. Right? Whereas if you keep practicing it, you actually progress. Right? You have to be consistent. Yeah.
Because like I use it sometimes, like if I know I'm really tired and like I need to get home, like I just keep saying it, like I say the Gatha in my head until I get home, but then I'm like, oh yeah, I don't know, like
No.
it's just the routine that I fall into. But,
That's good.
Yeah. But yeah, okay.
Can I add something to that?
Yes, Pant.
Regarding these 9 qualities of Buddha, these are the personal qualities when someone has developed Dhamma. So we also have these qualities, but not up to that level. That is why we can understand, like, when it is explained, we can touch that quality, right? We can sense it. So because we have that quality, if we do not have that quality, then we cannot sense it. So in meditation, what we do is we just recognize that quality of mind, which we already have, but that is maybe in the very subtle level, but we sense it. Then we try to develop that quality. So there are two ways this can happen. One way is you get rid of all your unwholesome qualities, bad qualities. Then these good qualities start to arise within you. Or you develop these good qualities. You recognize this good quality, then you use it again and again. Then that good quality can remove this bad quality. So this is just a very simple example, way of explanation. This developing this good quality or get rid of bad qualities. So when come to meditation, when we use this kind of like 9 qualities of Buddha or 6 qualities of Dhamma, right? 6 or 7? 6, right?
6.
Yes. So that is the nature, the quality of Dhamma. So when you sense it, then you develop it. So then you can, this quality start ingrained within you, develop within you. So okay, that's forget. Okay, I forget that. Sorry. yeah. Does it make sense? Sorry, when you practice mindfulness, it is different. When you practice mindfulness, this mindfulness show you good qualities and bad qualities, both. But when you practice something samatha, you practice something wholesome quality within you. But in mindfulness, you can see this both side, good and bad.
And is it samatha is not as good as the other one, as mindfulness, or it's not something like that?
You need all this. Like if you practice mindfulness, it's also develop wholesome qualities. If you practice samatha, that will help you to develop mindfulness.
So what's the word vipassana? What does that word mean? Because I feel like I hear it with the word samatha.
Vipassana basically means you see this good quality and bad quality, and you recognize this bad quality creates suffering and this good quality create no suffering. You see the good and bad within you, the suffering and no suffering. These two sides. So it's Buddha says samudaya and vaya, or viparinama, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's time to wind up, I guess, with silence, everyone. Over to you, Myasa, again.
Thank you, Bante, Bante, for attending and for taking the time out, and for everyone else that attended as well. Teruvan Saranai.
Teruvan Saranai.
Teruvan Saranai.